All right. Well, welcome everyone. Happy Tuesday. Had to think for a second. It's Tuesday. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Danny Lauer, and I'm the Assistant Director and Coordinator of Adult and Alumni Career Resources here at the GVSU Career Center. So many of you are introducing yourself in the chat, so thank you for doing that. And we're hosting this webinar today in partnership with GVSU Alumni Relations. And as a team, we are here to commit to your lifelong learning, your professional growth. And programs like this is just one way that we get to do that. So I am so pleased to introduce our webinar facilitator today, Abby Priebe. Abby is a career coach and owner of the Joyful Work Company, which I think is just the best name because I want my work to be joyful, and I think everyone does. So there she helps clients pursue meaningful work through reflective coaching and practical job search strategies. She previously served as a career coach at Calvin University, and she holds a master's degree in higher education from the University of Denver. So we are so glad to have her here, lending her expertise on resumes with us. And before we get started, and before I turn it over to Abby, just wanted to stress a few Zoom etiquette rules that I know we all know and love. But like I said, this webinar is being recorded and we'll share that with you afterwards. And if you need to conduct any business, just turn off your camera, mute that microphone, and go ahead and do that if needed. And then we will have some time at the end for your questions. So I know a lot of you submitted questions in the RSVP form, but if you have additional questions or your question wasn't answered and you want to ask it again, feel free to leave that in the chat and we'll make sure to take some time at the end to address those. So I think that's everything from me. Abby, I will hand it over to you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Danny, for having me today, and welcome to all of you. I'm so happy that you're here spending your St. Patrick's Day to learn about resumes. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone who celebrates today. I am Abby, and I am a career coach at the Joyful Work Co., just like Danny mentioned. If you haven't already done so, take a minute to open up the most recent version of your resume on your computer, or just have it handy just so that you can reference it today during our webinar. So let's go ahead and get started with a quick resume pop quiz. And I will read a statement to you. You'll see it on the screen. And if you think that statement is true, go ahead and give a thumbs up emoji in the Zoom call. And if you feel like that statement is false, go ahead and give us a thumbs down. So why don't we all just practice really quick? If you want, you can just go ahead and give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Perfect. Love seeing all of these floating through the screen. This looks fabulous. Great. Well, let's get started. I think we are ready. We are adequately warmed up. All right, so true or false, you must tailor your resume to each job posting. So if you think that's true, go ahead and give a thumbs up here. If you think that's false, go ahead and give it a thumbs down. All right, you guys are off to a great start. Yes, you must tailor your resume to each job posting. And the reason why we do that is because we want our resumes to demonstrate alignment with the job posting. It's a targeted marketing tool, and by customizing it to each job posting, you're telling a story that you are the best fit for that job. So well done. You guys passed that one with flying colors. Let's go to the next one. True or false, your resume should include every job you've ever held. Thumbs up if you think that's true. Thumbs down if you think that is false. Fabulous. Yes, I am seeing so many thumbs downs, and you guys are absolutely correct. That is false. Your resume is not a job application, and as such, you don't need to include every job that you've ever held. Think of it again as that targeted marketing document. It should tell a compelling story of why you are the best fit for the job without any fluff jobs that maybe aren't as relevant to the job that you're applying to. Great job. All right, next question. True or false, your resume should include a bullet point for every job duty you've ever done or every job duty you do in your job. Let's see those thumbs up or thumbs down. All right. Yes. Well done, everyone. This is a thumbs down. Absolutely. And again, the reason why is because it's that targeted marketing document. So include the bullet points that are most relevant for the job or jobs that you're applying to. All right. We're coming to the end here. Let's talk about this. When it comes to your resume's look and feel or the format of the resume, the more boring, the better. True or false? Let's see those thumbs. All right, I'm seeing a little bit more mixed responses here, so this is great. And I'm going to go ahead and say that this is true, and I'm going to tell you why. For the resumes that you submit to an ATS system or an applicant tracking system for your job application, generally speaking, the more simple, the more clean, the more boring the template, the easier it is for that ATS system to parse your resume. If you're using your resume in an in-person networking environment, that resume should look maybe a little bit different. That's where it's okay to use a little bit more, I would say, designed look or design features. But for the most part, generally speaking, the people that review resumes are used to reviewing resumes that are pretty basic, pretty clean. And we'll talk a little bit more about this later in today's presentation. And last but not least here, this is a popular topic. Your resume should be no longer than one page. True or false? I would love to hear what you all think about this. True or false? No more than one page. All right. Again, I am so happy to see some different responses here. Um, I am going to go ahead and give this one a thumbs down, and I want to give you the framework of why and why we're thinking how we should think about this question. Um, we want to stress that the importance of tailoring that resume, customizing that resume to every job. So if you're early on in your career, maybe you have less than 3 to 5 years of work experience, you can probably sufficiently fit all of your qualifications onto one page. Anything else that you are jamming in there to make it go onto 2 pages is probably what I would call just fluff or extra stuff that isn't quite as relevant to the job. If you have more extensive work experience, maybe you have different leadership positions that you'd like to highlight that are not part of your job, or you have volunteer experiences that you think might be relevant to the job that you're applying to, that's where I think it is okay to extend into that second page. I will say again, for every piece of content on your resume, you want to make sure that it is aligned to the job that you're applying to. So with that in mind, make that content earn that space on your resume, if that makes sense. All right, let's give a quick overview of where we are headed today. I hope you are all feeling confident with your basic resume knowledge. But as we get started today, we'll talk about the current job application landscape, which I think is important to recognize because the job market that we're experiencing right now in March of 2026 is much different than the job market that we were experiencing in 2021 or 2022. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about briefly just the different components of what makes an effective job search. We're going to talk about how to align your resume, how to write results-oriented bullet points for your resume. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on AI in your resume, although I know there was a webinar that was given previously for alumni about using AI in your job search, and that's probably a great resource if you're looking for more info on that topic. But then we'll also talk briefly about applicant tracking systems or ATS in your resume as well. So let's talk about the current job application landscape. And I'm starting here today because this is really important context. As you are working on your resume, as you're submitting applications for jobs, it is really important to know what you're engaging with, what the market is currently. So this is a graph from the US Department of Labor. It's the Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey. And this is a really important report that the Department of Labor publishes quarterly. And the reason why I want to take a look at this is this solid red line up at the top here is the total number of job openings. So as you can see, we are on a trending downward curve right now in the number of job openings. So generally speaking, fewer jobs are available than were available in 2022, 2021. Additionally, as you can see, these lines down here show the number of hires and the number of separations, and both of those numbers are pretty much stagnant. And so we have more people looking for jobs really than the number of jobs that are currently available. And I'm not saying this to discourage you. I just think, again, it's really important to know that it's a competitive job market. And so we want to make our resumes the absolute best that they can be to stand out. In addition to a decreasing number of job openings, we've had a huge disruption with the development of AI, and we are using AI both to apply for jobs. Employers are using AI to review job applications. But because of AI, employers are receiving more applications than ever before for jobs. So AI has made it easier than ever to apply for jobs. You can use Claude or Chat to write your resume, and then AI bots can apply for you while you sleep. So the number of applications for each job posting has increased dramatically over the last couple of years. This is just one source. Ashby is an applicant tracking system, ATS, and so this is from data that they publish to demonstrate the number of job applications per hire. So you can see that in 2021, 2022, they were receiving maybe about 100 job applications, whereas now we're receiving 200 more, so 300. So companies, depending on the industry, are flooded with job applications. They're receiving hundreds of applications for each posting. If you're a job seeker in this market, you've probably experienced this because you feel like you can't gain any traction in your search. You're applying for things, you're not hearing back, you're getting automatically rejected. And so we have a really highly competitive job market. And what worked in 2021 for looking for a new job, you're going to need to tweak that for an effective strategy today in 2026. Which leads to our next topic, talking about effective job search components. There are things that all of us can be doing, right, to run an effective job search. So having clarity about the type of position that you're seeking, the type of company or organization that you want to work for is important. It's important to have your optimized application materials. You should be publishing, right, things online. If you have a digital portfolio, if you can share things on LinkedIn, all of those help build your professional brand to have an optimized online presence. If you're job searching, it's really important to be connecting with your network in meaningful ways. And as you're getting invited to interviews, to ensure you know the best strategies to share about your experience in your interview. And then for a lot of us, the job search process is taking 6 months, upwards of 6 months. So it's really important to show resilience in the face of that long duration, that long job search. So of all of these components for an effective job search, today we are just focusing on one small piece, which is the optimized application material. So we are just focusing on resumes. And so there are going to be probably some questions today that we can't answer fully, and I'm always here to answer questions. At the end, I will share my contact information with you so you can have it. Today, we are just going to focus on resumes. It's just one piece of the ecosystem, but ideally, as a job seeker, you are engaging in each of these components to give yourself the best chance for success. So let's go ahead and have another interactive portion here. I am sure that we have people with us today that have served either on a hiring team, maybe you're a hiring manager, you're a recruiter. And I would love to hear from you, and for anyone who would like to share, what do you think employers are looking for when they review a resume? And I'd love to see in the chat what you have to say. What are employers looking for when they review a resume? Feel free to share that in the chat. Yeah, it's clarity around experience, relevant experience related to the job posting. Yep. Structure and relevance, applicable experience. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, relevant experience over a degree. That's a hot topic right now in hiring. Yeah, attention to detail, experience alongside samples of your work. Yes, keyword alignment with the job description in the resume is so important. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So these are the primary questions that employers are looking to answer when they review a resume. So primarily, can this person do the job? Does the person have the knowledge and the skills and the abilities to carry out the job successfully? They're also asking, does this person's career trajectory make sense for the job? So obviously, if you're an entry-level professional and you're applying for a mid or senior level position, you probably aren't going to get interviewed because you just simply don't have the requisite experience. If you are looking to shift industries and maybe you're looking for a position in a new industry, sometimes you have to change the verbiage of your resume to help the recruiting team in the new industry understand what your experience is. But this question of, does this person's career trajectory make sense for the job? You're looking for growth, to demonstrate growth in your career over a sense of time. And then lastly, what has this person accomplished already? Employers love to see action-oriented results in your bullet points. Is this person going to come in and add value to my team? That is the question that they are looking to answer here. So the number one rule for resumes is this: alignment. And we could just stop the webinar right here if you just keep alignment in mind as you are working on your resume. And these are three components of how we demonstrate alignment with a job posting. First is understanding the why or the need for the position. Then you want to position yourself. So position your experience on your resume to respond to the job posting. And then finally, to demonstrate your value by including those unique results and impacts from your work experience. So let's talk about understanding the why of the job posting. The job posting, I like to think of it sort of as a personal ad. Back in the day, you could like post a personal ad in like the classifieds or something like that, telling what kind of person you're looking for. The job posting is the same thing. It's telling the job seeker exactly what qualifications, what experience you should have if you want to apply for the job. I always think it's really important before you just go ahead and jump into applying to first take a step back and say, why is this job being posted? So you could use your favorite AI tool to analyze the job posting and tell you what the key problems are. You can prompt it with this question. So what problems is this position trying to solve? And then you copy and copy and paste the job opening to your favorite AI tool, and it will tell you what it sees as being the key priorities for the job. You can absolutely do this work yourself. You can read the job posting carefully, looking for those keywords, those key skills that the job posting mentions. And then some people also are really visual. So having some type of word cloud generator to identify keywords that are included in the job posting can be helpful. And you could just search word cloud generator online. You can copy and paste the job posting right into that tool, and then see what some of those keywords are that emerge. And so once you understand the why of the job posting, once you've got your head wrapped around what kind of person, what type of skills is this employer looking to hire, then you can go to your resume and position your experience using those same keywords and skills. Something that is so important to do on your resume is to connect the dots of your experience for the hiring team. The recruiter or the hiring manager that is looking at your resume isn't going to connect the dots for you. They are not going to be immediately able to understand the relevance without you telling them. So connecting the dots of your experience is really important. To do that, you can use the same verbiage or language that is used in the job posting for your bullet points, for your summary. If you decide to add a summary, you would want to add your relevant experience that speaks to those specific pain points of the job posting. You will want to tweak your bullet points and your existing summary to match the language used in the job posting. And then reorder your bullet points to reflect the priorities of the job posting. And then again, remove any fluff that is not relevant to what that job is looking for. And I want to give an example here of a client that I worked with in the last couple of years. This client had a background doing work in the religious nonprofit world. He was a clergy member for a congregation, and he decided that he was ready for a career change. And from that career change, he decided that he wanted to get into learning and development in HR. And so we went through a process on his resume to translate his experience as a clergy member to the needs of a learning and development specialist. So a learning and development specialist what do? They offer trainings, right? So public speaking is important. They develop programs that teach people about new ways to work together cross-functionally. They have to assess their work and demonstrate that the work that they're doing is effectively, right? They have to demonstrate that they know how to use learning management systems, perhaps. And so these are all of the job duties that we had to rewrite for my client's job about being a pastor. So his sermons on Sunday morning transitioned from being sermons to being public speaking lectures, right, for his congregants. The programs that he ran to recruit volunteers became programs on his resume that he talked about in educational ways, in educational opportunities. And so we were able to successfully translate that experience from his experience of being a clergy member, from being a pastor, to being a positioned as like a learning and development specialist. So it absolutely can be done, and you have to be intentional about how you're talking about your experience, again, to connect the dots for the recruiter and the hiring manager that will be reviewing your resume. So once you've positioned your experience using those keywords and skills, you also need to demonstrate your value on your resume. And the way that you demonstrate your value is by identifying your key work results. I created a really simple spreadsheet to help people do this for my coaching practice, and you're welcome to download this spreadsheet from my website. But basically, you want to start tracking what it is that you're doing. And so in a column, you'll have the job duty that you're responsible for. Could even be a special project that you've taken on in your work environment. You're going to list what you did in that job duty, how you do it. So what are the steps that you go through? What's that context that you are attempting to carry out that job duty in? And then you want to start looking for ways that you can quantify your results. So results are things that can be measured. Sometimes they're results that happen over time. The result that I'd like you to think about is it's sort of like the so what of your work. Why is what you're doing important, or why does it matter? And then you can also talk about your impact in that table. And then this column is just kind of like a handy skills use column. So this is where you could use any tech software, different keywords that are used in your industry, in your particular line of work, you can include in this column here. And again, I'll share these. I believe the slides will be shared with you, and so we can get this table to you if you think that would be helpful. So on your resume, it's really important to demonstrate your value in your key work results. And the way that you do that is by writing results-oriented bullet points. And for these results-oriented bullet points, they have three components that include what you did, how you did it, and then again, the result or impact of your work. And so what you did, that always starts with a strong action verb. A list of action verbs is available from the Grand Valley Career Center. You have access to that as alumni. And those are things that really capture what the action is that you are doing in your job. I tend to discourage people from using things like managed, coordinated, really kind of flat action verbs, but instead to use strong action verbs like optimized, led, collaborated, things like that, that again grab the reader's attention. So from there, you'll talk about how you did what you did. So you can include adjectives and descriptors, to help the reviewer understand the context of your work. And then you also will want to include the tools that you used, if applicable. And then finally, you want that bullet point to include the result or impact of your work. So that's how you describe the outcome of your unique work or contribution. So again, this result is the so what. Like, why does what you're doing matter? What is the purpose of it? And that is what you want to communicate in that result or in that impact. So let's take a minute here, and we are going to look at a couple examples of some different results-oriented bullet points. And so we're going to start with a customer service example. And so here is the before. Managed customer complaints and improved customer satisfaction scores. And so you can see that this before bullet point, it describes the work that this candidate did, right? That this person did. But it kind of reads just like a job posting. It reads like your job description would read. It doesn't really give any sense of what this person is capable of or how they manage those customer complaints, how they improve the customer satisfaction scores. It's just very straightforward, but we need more detail here. And so if this was my client, I would start asking a lot of questions. Well, how did you manage customer complaints? What tools did you use to manage those customer complaints? Tell me about that customer satisfaction score. Why is that important? Why does it matter? And so if we look at an after of this bullet point, this could be a possible solution. Resolved 40 plus daily customer complaints related to product experience, earning the highest customer satisfaction score on a team of 8 for 2025. So if I'd love to see a quick poll, which candidate would you want to hire? If you'd like to hire the before candidate, raise your hand or put it in the chat. If you'd like to hire the after candidate, which candidate looks more appealing to you as a just as a job seeker? Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be the candidate that can adequately describe the work that they do. I can see so many people saying after, but it's the candidate that can adequately describe the work that they do. As the hiring manager, you can clearly see the context, right? What this person is capable of, that they're a high achiever, and those are all things that demonstrate the value that this person would bring to their team. Let's look at another example from the world of education. I love working with educators because they do so many amazing things in their classroom on a daily basis that they don't even really, I think, give themselves credit for. But let's take a look at the example of education. So a lot of times when I'm working with teacher clients, this is what their resume bullet point will say. Well, I led a third grade class in reading, mathematics, writing, social studies, and science curricula. And I'm like, okay, great. Again, I have lots of questions for you. I want to know, how many students are you teaching? What are you doing to lead them in that learning? What specific activities are you engaged in? What are the results of your teaching, right? Are you seeing any growth in students' academic achievement over the course of the year? So when we start asking all of those questions again, then we see these types of patterns, these results-oriented patterns emerge. So here's an after bullet point. Developed and delivered creative lessons for 25 third grade students in core subjects, resulting in a 20% growth of students meeting state learning standards. So again, it's really clear what this person's unique results are, excuse me, to the job, right? To their identity and to their job as a teacher. We can see very clearly from this example how they bring value to the students in their classroom. Let's take a look at one final example from the world of communications. And I think this is a pretty straightforward job duty, right? From a communications professional. They wrote the monthly newsletter and they posted updates to social media accounts. So again, if this is my client, I have hundreds of questions for them about this. I want to know, what is in that monthly newsletter? Who are you sending it to? How many people are you sending it to? I think I would encourage them to break apart that responsibility of updating social media accounts and give that its own bullet point, give that its own attention. But let's talk about any changes that you've made to the monthly newsletter since you started in your position. How have you improved it? How have you made it better? And then again, what are the results? Are more people opening that newsletter? Are they engaging with it? And so when we look again at an after, sometimes these are the things that emerge from these conversations. They implemented a redesign of the monthly company newsletter for 10,000 subscribers by developing engaging content, initiating audience segmenting, and collaborating on a visual redesign, resulting in increased engagement of 33%. So again, you can clearly see what the value is of this person and the value that they bring to the work. You can understand the context, right? Context is important for recruiters. If you can, adequately communicate with 10,000 subscribers, maybe 50,000 subscribers is a goal. That's what their context is as the recruiter. So that seems manageable. Again, it depends on each organization, but you're giving the recruiter context and results for the type of work that you're capable of. All right, so we are going to practice together. And I would love to give the opportunity for you, if you're stuck with a bullet point or some kind of job duty, you don't know how to talk about your results, your impact with that job duty, please send it in a direct message to Danny. And Danny is going to pick, yes, thank you, Danny. Danny is going to pick a couple of these bullet points, and we'll pick one or two to share with the group. And so we can demonstrate together how to amplify your work and write about the impact. So let's go ahead and we'll just take a couple minutes. Feel free to go ahead and send any of your bullet points or your job duties to Danny. And we will, yeah, just give it a couple minutes and then move into our next portion here.
Okay, I'm seeing a couple come in. Thanks, everybody. I'm getting these. Abby, are you seeing these on your end as I'm sending them your way?
Yes. Yep.
Perfect. Okay,
I sure am.
great. Thanks, everybody. All right, let me know if you've got enough here, Abby.
I think this looks great. Yep.
Okay, awesome.
So I'm going to
Thanks,
stop
everybody.
sharing. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I'm excited to dig into a couple of these. So I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint and I'm going to go ahead and share this lovely tab that Danny has put together. And so here we go. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just so that we can all see this a little bit more clearly here. All right, so here are some great resume bullet point examples. So event planning and execution through organization and promotion of seasonal professional development sessions, public events and student workshops, maintained a clean workstation and store appearance for customer satisfaction, applied SEO strategies to elevate brand presence and identity, conduct primary and secondary research, psychiatric nursing to undergraduate nursing students, great. All right, so let me see here. Let's see what could be. Great. So just as a quick observation from all of these bullet points that you all shared, thank you so much for sharing these. I think it's so helpful to have practical examples to look at during these types of presentations, because it's one thing to talk about these concepts and then another thing to actually put them into practice. So one observation that I see from all of these is that I don't see any types of numbers included. So that is a really easy way to boost your bullet points on your resume is to think about how you can measure your work or quantify your work. So let's think about these primary and secondary research to synthesize sources. I'm curious what you're doing for this research. Are you looking at a number of journal articles? Are you doing research online? Um, how many sources are you synthesizing? And then what is the purpose of doing this? What is the overall goal that this bullet point is working for this event planning and execution through organization and promotion of seasonal professional development sessions, et cetera. How many professional development sessions are you responsible for planning and executing? How many public events? How many student workshops? Another way that you could add measurement to this bullet point is listing the number of attendees that come to your particular sessions, right? Um, that type of data, that type of number really does give scope and gives context, again, to the people that would be reviewing your resume. So numbers are really, really helpful. An easy way to add in numbers here for undergraduate nursing students. How many students are you teaching each term, right? How many students are you responsible for stewarding through the psychiatric nursing curriculum that you are responsible for teaching? For maintaining adherence to policies through regular staff evaluations and supervision, all by maintaining a positive staff morale. How many staff are you responsible for overseeing, right? So again, just the quantification or that measurement is really important for communicating what your results are. So that's one piece. Another way that you can add in results are by adding in more like the overall so what or why does it matter for this work. So for example, coordinate all logistics for programming of campus events. What are these campus events intended for? What is the outcome of those campus events? Is it to promote student learning? Is it to foster relationships with employers? Is it for um, building school pride? Like, we want to add in what those overall outcomes are for the work that you're doing, and that will really help elevate how you talk about your work on your resume. I had one other thought here. I think for some of these bullet points too, I would switch the order of these words. So maintained is a word that we often see on resumes. So I see it a couple times here: maintained adherence, maintained a clean workstation. So what I would do, for example, instead of starting with maintained, what you could start with instead is something like promoted customer satisfaction by maintaining a clean workstation and store appearance. So what you're actually putting forth is that you're exceptional at customer satisfaction because you do a good job maintaining your workstation and maintaining that store appearance. So just flipping the order of the words, like I'm showing currently, I think can help elevate what that work result is. Yeah. Here we go. Okay, so let's look at the next one here. So maintaining adherence to policies through regular staff evaluations and supervision, all by maintaining a positive staff morale. Again, this is one that I would flip. So if you start with maintaining a positive staff morale, or you could say something facilitated a positive staff morale, promoted a positive staff morale, those types of words are stronger than just maintaining. And again, I would encourage you to add a number here. How many staff are you overseeing? What program are you using to conduct those regular staff evaluations? How do you supervise? Do you do weekly team meetings? Do you do one-on-one check-ins? But all of that type of information is really important context that you can add so that it's clear to the hiring manager or the recruiter what exactly it is that you bring to the table. So again, happy to answer more questions about this at the end. I want to make sure that we get to our other content. So I'm going to stop sharing this and go back to my PowerPoint here. So thank you again, everyone, for sharing those bullet points. That was so helpful to see those real life examples. And we're going to go back here. Let's talk about some smart ways that we can use AI to strengthen your resume. So early on in our webinar, we talked about how AI has made it easier than ever to apply for jobs. So you can write your resume, right, using chat and Claude. I'm sure all of us could say we've probably used AI to consult with as we're developing our resume. You can use AI as your personalized job search consultant. So you can ask it questions that will help you research the context of the position that you want to apply for, also the company that you're applying for, and you can use it to adjust your resume accordingly. Once your resume is drafted for a job posting, you could share just your resume with your favorite tool and ask it to compare it to the job posting. What areas of your resume do you need to strengthen? It'll tell you the areas that it might see that you might need to add some additional keywords or some additional verbiage around. Because AI has made it easier, recruiters are reviewing hundreds of resumes that all look and sound the same, thanks to AI, thanks to chat, thanks to Claude. So to stand out, I actually don't recommend that you use AI as the final draft of your resume. It might be a great tool for that first draft to get you started, but you should absolutely make it your own. If you feel confident with your writing, use your own brain to write your resume. I love to write, so I love tinkering with words. I love that process of resume writing. Um, and so, really, by writing your own unique document, you can stand out, ensuring that you have done your job to tailor it to use those keywords, use those skill sets that are advertised in the job posting. I also wanted to just spend a couple minutes talking about applicant tracking systems. Um, in ATS, I feel like we hear a lot about them, about how they're rejecting people, how you need to make your resume friendly to the ATS. There's some different, I think, verbiage that we hear a lot about applicant tracking systems. At its very basic function, an ATS is used by a company or an organization to accept and process job applications. So common examples are things like Workday, Ashby, and Greenhouse. Over here are some other platforms that companies use, again, to organize this hiring process. What does ATS do? What do applicant tracking systems do? This is a screen grab from a recruiter that I follow on LinkedIn that I think is really helpful. But really, you should think of the applicant tracking system just like a digital filing cabinet. So when you submit your application, your resume enters the ATS. The ATS system reads your resume, it parses the data, parses the words out of it, and then saves your details for any future search. Recruiters can review your profile, can review your resume. The ATS would update you as the candidate, right, on your job application status. Recruiters can also search for keywords in their applicant tracking systems from that data set that they have from resumes that people have already submitted. And so your profile stays within that system for the future. And so think of it like a digital filing cabinet. When you are uploading your resume, you are uploading it into this digital filing cabinet that makes it searchable. So, with that in mind, there are tips, things that you can do to make your resume friendly for ATS readability. So, for the purpose of an ATS, this is any resume that you're uploading into one of these application systems. Really think of your resume as a data set, as data. It's not supposed to be a beautifully designed piece of paper. We want it to be a data set that will be easily read by the parsing systems in these ATS. When you apply, follow the instructions in the online application. Upload a Word doc or a PDF with your application. Use a simple template, right? Use a really simple overall look and feel with one font type and size, preferably a really clean, basic, and simple font, which is something like Arial, Times New Roman, just something that's pretty basic and boring. I don't recommend using any fancy colors. I don't recommend using any images, graphs, or tables. Don't include a headshot on your resume. Use a single column to showcase your work, not a two-column format or a three-column format. And then, of course, make sure that your document is error-free. And we're going to take a look at two different resume samples to draw out some of these differences between a resume that is considered friendly to the ATS and a resume that would be really difficult for an ATS to read. So let's take a look at this resume. And again, let's go back to our chat. If you think this resume is ATS friendly, I would love to see a thumbs up in the window. If you think this resume is not ATS friendly, go ahead and give a thumbs down. Yes, good job, everyone. You all are so smart. Yes. So this is not every resume that is ATS friendly. It has colors, it has a headshot. Something that I always kind of dissuade people from using are these type of skill graphs that measure your skill in these tools. I do not recommend this. This is not easily parsed by an ATS system. And instead, use descriptor words. If you're an advanced user of Photoshop, say again, advanced user of Photoshop. That's the verbiage that you should include on your resume. And it's too colorful, right? Like there's too much going on. Might this type of resume format work for an in-person networking event? It might, right? It might work for that purpose. I don't recommend using it for submission to an ATS. Let's look at this resume as a contrast. How many of you, thumbs up if you think this is friendly to the ATS, thumbs down if you would say it's not friendly to the ATS. Let's see those responses. Yes, absolutely. This is a friendly resume for ATS. And again, the reason being is that it's a clean and simple format. There is one column here, right, in the middle. The words are used to describe the skill set. It's easy to scan. The font is very legible, easy to read, easily parsed by an ATS system. The data can be easily taken from this resume for that purpose. And so that are all just great things, I think, to be thinking about as you are seeking to elevate your resume in today's day and age. I think we're tempted to think that we need to highly design our resume for being able to stand out. But in reality, we should focus instead on really highly developing the content of our resume, the data of our resume, so that it effectively showcases our work results and our impacts in a way that is aligned with whatever the job posting is. So now it is your turn. Um, Question and answer time. I'd love to answer your questions. So please share your questions in the chat and we'll do our best to get through as many as we can in this time.
Abby, there were two that actually came through, and yes, please, everyone, share your questions in the chat. There's two that came through
Great.
during the presentation.
Mm-hmm,
One was towards the beginning when we talked about the kind of the thumbs up, thumbs down
mm-hmm.
with experience and putting everything on your resume. And the question
Yes.
is, what if it's not totally relevant, but explains pivots, or what would it look like with I'm not sure. Something about with gap, like what I think they're looking at like what about how do you explain gaps, right? If you don't
Mm-hmm.
include a certain experience,
Yep.
how do you explain a gap in your resume there?
Yes. I think it really depends on the resume. It depends on the type of position that you are applying to. If you are currently in a gap position that you took because you had to, I mean, I think a lot of job seekers are in this point. Maybe you were laid off and you took the position that you could. You should absolutely include that position under your current work experience. And you should think about the ways that that position is relevant to the job that you want to have or the job that you are applying to. Um, so even there are transferable skills in any job, right? And so even let's say for some people they've taken positions working temporarily in a retail setting or something like that. The teamwork, the customer service, things like that are all transferable to other settings. For some people, it is helpful to explain if there is a gap on your resume. You could explain what was happening during that time. Sometimes there are people that have to take time off of work to serve as caregivers. Sometimes we take off time off of work because we were looking for a job, right? We were laid off and we were unemployed. And so for some people, it can be helpful to add in those gaps. If you're not sure, what I encourage clients to do sometimes is try a couple different things out on some different job applications and see what sticks. Sometimes it's helpful to explain those gaps. Sometimes it's not necessary. You can do that in the interview. But again, it depends really on the experience and what your trajectory should be. I hope that makes sense.
That was great. Um, Also, when we were talking about quantifiers, someone had asked about using real number results. They said, should we be using real number results in trying to demonstrate growth, or should we use a number that grabs the recruiter's attention?
Yeah, so I would say that maybe a percentage is effective if you can show like percentage growth there. Um, or, yeah, some type of if you can capture that result with a percentage, sometimes that can like sort of level the playing field, right? But I would also say that recruiters are looking for context. So just because you've successfully managed a social media channel for 100 people doesn't mean that you can successfully manage a social media channel that has 100,000 followers, right? So that context is important. So I think that you can still use those results in a way that speaks effectively to your abilities with percentages. And sometimes where it makes sense, use that real number if it's equivalent to like the type of job that you're applying to, where it would show that you have the right context, the right experience for that position.
Awesome. And then a follow-up question, Abby, that came in, and I see the other ones before it as well, and I'll get to those. But with the gaps, is the cover letter a good place to kind of explain some of those gaps in your resume?
Yeah, so a cover letter absolutely can be a spot to explain some of those employment gaps. Um, it can be a place where you talk about how you spent that time, right? Maybe if you are in a current employment gap, you spent that time upskilling, learning new skills. you spent it caregiving, things like that. The point is that I think job seekers really focus on these employment gaps as reasons why they may or may not be getting hired. And I think instead, we should focus on what you can bring to the table. Like that is the narrative that you can control, is what the results are, what the unique impact is that you have that you would bring. So a cover letter could be a good spot. Again, it just kind of depends. And I hate saying depends in a situation like that. Um, if you took off time off of work because you were caregiving for a period of time and you've decided to re-enter the workforce, you could absolutely talk about that in your cover letter, but don't spend too much time there. Like focus instead on what you would bring, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Excellent. Thank you. Um,
Yeah.
Really quick question about formatting. So the individual wants to know if there's kind of a preference around formatting, kind of like the typical month, day, year, kind of
Hmm.
numbers only, or if you would
Hmm.
spell out the month and the year. Is there a
Yeah.
preference there?
I would stick with month and year, and I think it's fine to use either the numeric month or to spell out the full month name. I don't think dates really matter for the purposes of a resume. So I think month and year, just be consistent again, because when that resume is read by the ATS, it's going to look for that data, and it will be easier for it to read that data if you have consistently represented the dates throughout your resume.
Yeah, make it all look the same.
Yes. So whether you're doing month year range, or the numeric month and the numeric year, that's fine. Just be consistent.
Awesome. How would someone show growth on their resume when they've been in a position for, or the same position for a long time, a lot of years?
Hmm. That's a great question. Of yes, how do you show your experience? How do you show what you are capable of, right, as an employee? Um, I think that the way that I would recommend you do this on your resume is you have all of your positions classified, you could, under the same organization with appropriate dates for each position time frame, like for each time frame that you worked in that position, but then to ensure that you really are differentiating what the responsibilities were for each of those roles in that organization. Um, you could indicate on the resume that it was a promotion. Sometimes that can be helpful for like a new industry or a new context to see that these were promotions that you received, into these positions. But you do want to make sure you're doing your part to really showcase what is, like what is unique about each of those positions, what the new responsibilities, the new results are that you have contributed because of that role. And again, it's hard for me to give specific advice if I'm not actually seeing the resume in front of me, but you would just want to make sure you're paying good attention to each of those roles and then what your unique contributions were for each of those positions.
Great. Thanks, Abby. And I'm kind of seeing this next question, and a little bit of what you shared highlights some of those answers as well. But yeah, if they're working in different positions, same company, and had, different job titles, things like that. Like what's the best, you kind of answer this, but like the best way to highlight that career growth, changing responsibilities when all of it's within the same organization. And I think what I'm hearing you say is, listing out those different positions, maybe the different things that you did as you've
Hmm.
grown. Am I
Hmm.
hearing you correctly in that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. Yep. And so whether some people, they will, like when they're organizing their work experience on their resume, you'll list the position title, you'll list the organization, right? The dates that you work there, the location. So for some people, they will include like one section. Let's say it was at Meyer, and you worked for 20 years at Meyer. And so you have a Meyer section where you started as a cashier and now you work in corporate as an operations manager. I don't know. But you would want, again, to just, you can show that career growth and that career progression. And whether you nest it all under Meyer, whether you include individual entries that say like Meyer every time, it's kind of up to you. If that makes sense, just again, be consistent. It might be helpful to include Meyer every time, to like list each position with each separate employer, or to list, I'm sorry, to list each position individually with the same employer. Like, but it's hard to talk about. I feel like it'd be easier to like dissect it on a actually looking at a resume together.
Yeah, yeah, I know those little things are tricky. You can't
Hmm.
see it. So,
Yes.
but thank you. So another question came in, creating the why in the resume. So should the bullet points also reflect the message in the cover letter, or should they consider the cover letter as the story and like what they bring to the table, instead of allowing the information to reflect on the resume? Thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
let's talk a little bit about cover letters. So cover letters, I would say in today's context, unless the job posting specifically asks for a cover letter, absolutely write a cover letter, make it good, make it so that you can stand out and really elevate your candidacy with that cover letter. Um, because it is a competitive market, because recruiters are reviewing a ton of applications, I would say unless the job posting is asking you to submit a cover letter, there is a good chance that your cover letter may not even be read by a recruiter or by a hiring manager. So any of those bullet points that you would reference in a cover letter, your cover letter can kind of be like a highlighted summary, right, of what your bullet points are in your resume. But you would absolutely make sure that the resume has the most complete, comprehensive, robust form of your bullet points that exist. And then if you are writing a cover letter that accompanies your resume, that you're doing your job in that cover letter to tell the story of how your work experience has prepared you to be the best fit for this job that you're applying to.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm glad we got to touch on cover
Mhm.
letters for a minute. And I'm checking the time, so I think we'll have to cut off the questions there. Abby, how can folks find you? Do you have
Yes,
perfect? Yes, your contact
yes.
information.
Yes. So thank you all for being such an active, engaged group. It was wonderful to be with you today. If you have additional questions, things that we did not cover today, please feel free to reach out. My email address is included right here. You're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, visit my website, and I look forward to hearing from you. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you again, Danny and the GB Career Center for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And just as a quick plug, Kyle threw our Alumni Career Resources website in the chat. So please make sure to visit that. There's a ton of great resources. We did just create a new adult and alumni resume guide that is specifically for folks who have more experience than students coming, to us in the Career Center who are younger. So definitely check that out. It's a great resource there. And perfect, Kyle's throwing that in the chat as well. And Abby is one of our career coaches that we work with as well. So definitely check out her website. She's listed on our career coaching database, and we have a lot of great folks there who are wanting to support you in your career journey. So perfect. And that is in the chat as well. So we will wrap up our time today. Thanks again, everyone, for spending your lunch break with us, or your noon hour, however you spend it. We appreciate it. And we hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.